A struggling CEO dines at a luxury restaurant after a hard day. A poor girl asks for leftovers. He jokes, "If you can unlock my phone, they're yours." She recovers lost files that save his company, and he changes the little girl's life forever. Before we start, I love seeing this community grow. Feel free to introduce yourself below. The clock read 8:47 p.m. when Marcus Wellington emerged from the boardroom of Wellington Tech Solutions, his face bearing the weight of 42 years and 20 years of building an empire that was now crumbling beneath his feet like sand through an hourglass. The last 15 investors had just pulled their funding following the catastrophic data loss that occurred exactly 3 weeks ago, leaving his once thriving company hemorrhaging money at an alarming rate that threatened to drain their remaining reserves within days. Mr. Wellington, his assistant Helen, caught up with him in the hallway, her usually composed demeanor showing visible cracks of worry and stress. "The finance department needs to discuss the layoffs urgently. They're saying we might have to let go of 60% of our workforce by Friday morning if we can't secure emergency funding." "Tomorrow, Helen. Please." Marcus loosened his Italian silk tie that cost more than some employees' monthly salary, feeling the expensive fabric constrict around his throat like a noose, tightening with each passing hour. "Cancel all of today's appointments. I need time to think clearly about our options." 20 minutes later, he sat alone at Le Bernardin, Manhattan's most expensive and exclusive French restaurant, where he used to close million-dollar deals with the supreme confidence of a man who had never known failure or defeat. The bitter irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, potentially eating his last meal as a successful businessman, in the very place where he'd celebrated his biggest victories and most triumphant moments. Now he was just a lonely, defeated man, trying desperately to find some meaning in the complete wreckage of his once brilliant life. His marriage had ended exactly 2 years ago, when Sarah finally reached her breaking point after years of mounting frustration. "I married a man, not a company," she had said during their final, devastating argument that lasted until dawn. She couldn't handle his constant absences anymore, the missed anniversaries that piled up year after year, the forgotten birthdays, the way he would compulsively check his phone during their most intimate dinners. No children to soften the brutal blow of divorce, no close family members to provide comfort or support, just a failing company that had systematically consumed everything he once held dear. The maître d', Philippe, greeted him with the practiced, polished respect reserved exclusively for VIP clients, though Marcus detected a subtle but unmistakable shift in his demeanor. Word traveled fast in Manhattan's elite social circles. "Your usual table, Monsieur Wellington? The corner booth overlooking the kitchen where you prefer to conduct business?" Marcus nodded silently, lost in dark thoughts about how he would tell 300 loyal employees that the company he'd built passionately since age 22 was on the brink of complete bankruptcy. The central servers had been corrupted in what appeared to be a sophisticated, deliberate cyber attack, taking with them $15 million worth of crucial development contracts and 2 years of irreplaceable proprietary code. 3 weeks of intensive investigation by the best digital forensics experts money could buy had recovered absolutely nothing substantial. The restaurant buzzed with the usual evening crowd of Manhattan's elite, investment bankers, politicians, celebrities, and business moguls who had no idea that one of their own was sitting among them, facing complete ruin. Marcus ordered his usual, the tasting menu with wine pairings, more out of habit than appetite. He found himself studying the other diners, wondering how many of them would survive if their entire life's work vanished overnight. That's when he saw her, A thin, fragile girl, wearing worn but meticulously clean clothes, quietly approaching tables with the natural dignity of someone far older than her apparent years. Moving through the restaurant like a ghost seeking sustenance, something about her careful, respectful approach to each table caught his attention in a way that momentarily pulled him from his own despair. The young girl approached Marcus's table with hesitant but purposeful steps, her large, expressive blue eyes reflecting a profound wisdom that seemed absolutely impossible for someone her tender age. She carried a worn school backpack with patches sewn carefully over tears and worn spots, and her clothes, though clearly second-hand from thrift stores, had been maintained with obvious care, pride, and meticulous attention to detail. "Excuse me, sir," she said with a soft but remarkably determined voice that carried just the slightest tremor of nervousness. "I don't want money or charity from you. I was just politely asking if anyone has leftover food they won't eat tonight. I completely understand if you'd prefer I move along to another table." Marcus looked at her intently, momentarily forgetting his own catastrophic troubles and overwhelming problems. There was something profoundly moving about this child's approach, polite, dignified, honest, and refreshingly direct, that stood in stark, beautiful contrast to the corporate sharks and vultures who had abandoned his sinking company at the very first sign of serious trouble. "Where are your parents tonight, little one?" "My grandma is very sick in the hospital with severe pneumonia. She's been taking care of me ever since my mum passed away from cancer exactly 2 years ago, this month. I'm 9 years old, not 8, she added, with a distinct touch of wounded pride, straightening her small shoulders with visible determination. "I know I look younger because I'm naturally small for my age, but I'm definitely 9. Something about this remarkable child's quiet dignity and inner strength touched Marcus in a way he hadn't expected or experienced in years. In his brutal world of calculated risks and strategic corporate maneuvers, her straightforward honesty was like a breath of fresh air. Instead of simply offering money or food like most people would, a mischievous idea crossed his troubled mind. Partly genuine curiosity, partly the desperate desire to engage with someone whose serious problems weren't directly tied to quarterly earnings reports and volatile stock prices. He pulled his iPhone from his jacket pocket, the same expensive device that had become both his lifeline and his curse over the past 3 devastating weeks. It contained the last remaining remnants of his company's digital infrastructure, encrypted backups, and communication threads with investors who were now nothing more than ghosts haunting his memory. "I'll make you an interesting deal," he said carefully, placing the phone on the pristine white tablecloth between them. "If you can successfully unlock this phone, I won't just give you my dinner leftovers, but I'll take you to eat whatever you want, wherever you want to go." The girl tilted her head thoughtfully, studying the expensive device with intense, focused concentration. "What's the password? If I knew that, it wouldn't be much of a challenge, would it?" Marcus smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks. "I changed the password exactly 3 weeks ago after some very serious problems at the company and, well, let's just say a lot of terrible things have happened since then. My mind has been completely elsewhere." The girl's bright eyes lit up with unmistakable interest and excitement, and Marcus found himself genuinely curious about what would happen next. In his predictable world of boring board meetings and carefully calculated risks, this spontaneous challenge felt refreshingly different and alive. Marcus watched as other diners glanced their way with varying degrees of curiosity and disapproval. He could see them whispering, probably wondering why a successful businessman was entertaining a homeless child. But for the first time in weeks, he didn't care about appearances or what others thought. There was something magnetic about this young girl's quiet confidence that made him want to see what she was truly capable of accomplishing. "My name is Lucy," she said, carefully picking up the phone with the reverence of someone who truly understood the value of expensive things and treated them with appropriate respect. "Lucy Chen. My grandma always says I have a completely natural way with these complicated things. She used to work with early computers at IBM back in the 1980s, before everything became so incredibly complicated and advanced." Marcus watched with growing fascination as Lucy's small, delicate fingers danced across the screen with surprising expertise and confidence. She wasn't simply trying random passwords like most people would do. She seemed to instinctively understand complex patterns, methodically analyzing fingerprint marks on the screen, carefully observing the way Marcus naturally held the device, even noting which specific numbers showed more wear on the screen surface. "You're clearly a successful businessman," she murmured, more to herself than to him, her young mind working through the puzzle with remarkable focus and determination. "You probably use important dates for security purposes, but not obvious ones like birthdays or anniversaries. That would be far too easy for someone smart like you. Not simple number sequences either. You're clearly much smarter than that." She paused, looking up at him with those penetrating blue eyes. "When exactly did you last change your password?" "Exactly 3 weeks ago, on a Wednesday evening." "Why does that specific timing matter so much?" "People change passwords when something truly significant happens in their lives. They either use the exact date of the traumatic event itself, or sometimes they do the complete opposite. They use something that represents happiness or success to counteract the negative feelings." Lucy continued working with intense concentration, her small face scrunched in deep thought. "You look really sad today, and you mentioned serious problems 3 weeks ago. I'm betting you were absolutely devastated 3 weeks ago too." Marcus was genuinely impressed by her perceptive analysis and emotional intelligence. "You're absolutely right, Lucy. Something very bad happened at my work that day. It nearly destroyed everything I've spent 20 years building." After 15 minutes of systematic attempts, Lucy suddenly stopped and examined his hands more closely with scientific curiosity. "Can I ask you something personal? You have small scars on your hands and fingers, tiny ones, like you used to work with electronics when you were younger, maybe taking things apart and putting them back together." Yes, that's exactly right. I used to take apart radios, televisions, and early computers when I was around your age. My parents were constantly frustrated with me for dismantling everything valuable in the house. How did you possibly notice something so small? People who build things for a living think differently than people who just use things without understanding them. They don't create passwords about destruction or failure. They use passwords about construction, creation, success. Lucy typed a careful sequence with confidence. 071502. The phone unlocked immediately. "July 7th, 2002. The day you registered your company, right?" She looked up at him with a triumphant smile that lit up her entire face. Marcus stared at the unlocked phone in complete amazement, his mouth hanging slightly open in shock. Not only had she successfully cracked his carefully chosen password, but she had correctly deduced the single most important date of his entire professional life, the day he'd registered Wellington Tech Solutions 20 years ago at age 22 with just $5,000 borrowed from his college roommate. The other diners had stopped their conversations to watch this unusual interaction. Marcus could see Philippe, the maître d', hovering nearby with obvious concern, probably wondering if he should intervene. But Marcus was too stunned to care about the attention they were attracting. This child had just accomplished something that should have been impossible. "How did you research me while working on the password?" Marcus asked, still in disbelief. "I used the guest Wi-Fi and my phone," Lucy said simply, pulling a cracked but functional smartphone from her backpack. "I always carry it for emergencies. Grandma taught me to always be prepared." Marcus stared at the unlocked phone in complete amazement and disbelief, his mouth hanging slightly agape as if he'd just witnessed something truly impossible. Not only had she successfully cracked his carefully chosen password, but she had correctly deduced the single most important and meaningful date of his entire professional life. The day he'd registered Wellington Tech Solutions 20 years ago at age 22, with just $5,000 borrowed from his college roommate and a burning dream of changing the technology world forever. "How did you—" "That's literally impossible," he murmured, taking the phone back with trembling fingers that betrayed his shock. "Even my closest business associates and partners don't know that specific registration date. I've never told anyone that personal story about how I started the company. I researched you while I was working on the password," Lucy said matter-of-factly, as if performing advanced corporate research while simultaneously cracking sophisticated security codes was perfectly normal behavior for a 9-year-old child. "I recognized your name from the company wallpaper on your phone. Wellington Tech Solutions was incorporated on July 7, 2002. According to the New York State Business Registry database, you looked like the type of person who would use the date of the most important thing you ever accomplished." Marcus felt as if the entire bustling restaurant had suddenly gone completely silent around them, as if time itself had stopped to witness this extraordinary moment. This remarkable child had demonstrated a level of analytical thinking and technical intuition that he rarely encountered in adults with decades of professional experience and advanced degrees. "Lucy, what you just did, that's absolutely remarkable. But let me ask you something else. Do you see anything strange about this phone? Any applications behaving differently than they should?" Lucy took the phone again, her small fingers navigating through screens with the confidence and expertise of a seasoned IT professional. Her bright eyes scanned each app, each setting, each notification with meticulous attention to detail and systematic thoroughness. After several minutes of intense concentration, she frowned deeply, her young face showing genuine concern and worry. "There's definitely something very odd here, Mr. Wellington. Some of your applications are using significantly more memory than they should be using. And there are hidden temporary files scattered throughout the system that definitely shouldn't be there. It looks like someone tried to delete important data but didn't complete the process properly." "Temporary files?" Marcus leaned forward urgently, his heart beginning to race with a dangerous combination of hope and disbelief. "What specific kind of files are you seeing?" Lucy continued navigating through the phone's hidden directories with expertise that defied every assumption about her age and background. "I can see fragments of really important-looking files scattered everywhere throughout the system. Business contracts, complex programming codes, detailed financial spreadsheets, client communications. They're corrupted and fragmented, but definitely not completely lost forever." Marcus felt his hands beginning to tremble as the staggering implications of Lucy's discovery hit him like a physical blow to his chest. Could it possibly be that the files that had disappeared 3 weeks ago were still there? Philippe finally approached their table, clearly unable to contain his curiosity any longer. "Monsieur Wellington, forgive the intrusion, but is everything all right?" The other guests are beginning to notice. "Philippe, everything is more than all right," Marcus said, his voice filled with growing excitement. "This young lady may have just saved my company. Please, bring her anything she wants from the menu. Cost is no object." Lucy looked up from the phone, her eyes wide with surprise at Marcus's generous offer. "Mr. Wellington, I think I can recover most of these files. But we'll need better equipment. This phone is amazing, but it's not designed for major data recovery operations." The magnitude of what was happening was beginning to sink in for Marcus. Not only had this child cracked his password, but she might have found the key to saving everything he'd worked for. Marcus felt his hands beginning to tremble uncontrollably as the staggering implications of Lucy's incredible discovery hit him like a devastating physical blow to his chest and soul. Could it possibly be that the files that had disappeared 3 weeks ago, causing the crisis that was systematically destroying his company and his entire life, had been hiding in his phone all along, right under his nose? Lucy, what you're looking at right now, those fragmented files represent the most important data my company has ever created. We lost everything 3 weeks ago in what we thought was a complete system failure, and they're definitely not lost, Mr. Wellington. Lucy interrupted with confidence, her fingers working with remarkable speed and precision through the phone's complex file system. They're fragmented and deliberately hidden, but still completely recoverable with the right techniques. Someone tried very hard to delete them completely, but they didn't understand that Apple devices automatically create encrypted temporary copies whenever synchronization processes are interrupted unexpectedly. It's a built-in safety feature that most people don't know about. Felipe, the distinguished maître d', approached their table with discreet concern, clearly puzzled by the intense technical conversation between a well-dressed businessman and a young girl who appeared to be homeless. Monsieur Wellington, is everything all right this evening? Is the child causing any disturbance to your dining experience? Absolutely not, Marcus replied quickly, his voice carrying more genuine excitement than he'd felt in months. Philippe, please bring your finest children's meal for Miss Lucy immediately, and bring me your best bottle of sparkling cider. We have something truly extraordinary to celebrate tonight. Lucy looked up from the phone with obvious pride in her remarkable accomplishment. Mr. Wellington, I've successfully recovered approximately 70% of your data already, just using your phone's basic recovery tools. But you're going to need access to a much more powerful computer system to properly reconstruct the remaining fragments. The files need professional-grade software to rebuild them completely. Marcus could barely believe what he was hearing. This remarkable child had accomplished in less than an hour what his team of expensive digital forensics specialists couldn't achieve in 3 intensive weeks of investigation. Lucy, do you have any idea how much those recovered files are worth to my company? Based on the contract fragments I've seen so far, probably somewhere around $15 million in active business agreements, plus whatever the proprietary software code is worth on the market. Lucy paused thoughtfully. Mr. Wellington, can I ask you something? Why are you being so incredibly kind to me? Most adults just ignore kids like me completely. Marcus looked at this extraordinary child who had just saved his company and possibly his entire life, and felt something profound stirring in his heart that he hadn't experienced in years. Lucy, you've just accomplished something miraculous, but more than that, you've reminded me what true intelligence and determination look like. As the evening progressed, Marcus found himself sharing more details about his company's crisis than he had with anyone else. Lucy listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that showed she understood the business implications of what had happened. Her insights were remarkable. She could see patterns and connections that his highly paid consultants had missed. Mr. Wellington, Lucy said suddenly, I think I know who might have sabotaged your system. The deletion pattern isn't random. It's too sophisticated for an outside hacker, but too sloppy for a professional. It looks like someone with inside knowledge, but limited technical skills. Marcus felt his blood run cold. The possibility of internal sabotage had been considered but never proven. What makes you think that? The way the files were hidden suggests someone knew your system architecture but didn't understand the backup protocols. They probably thought they were being clever, but they actually preserved evidence of what they did. This 9-year-old girl had just provided him with the most valuable insight of the entire crisis. The next morning arrived crisp and clear, with Marcus arriving at Mount Sinai Hospital at exactly 9 a.m. sharp, carrying fresh flowers, a high-end laptop computer, and a heart full of possibilities he hadn't dared imagine just 24 hours earlier. Lucy had given him the specific address and her grandmother's room number the night before, along with careful instructions about visiting hours and hospital protocols. He had spent the entire sleepless night working alongside his top programming specialists, using Lucy's initial file recovery as a foundation to rebuild the corrupted data systems. The results had been absolutely staggering. Not only had they successfully recovered the $15 million in active contracts, but they had also discovered unmistakable digital evidence of deliberate corporate sabotage that finally explained the mysterious data loss that had nearly destroyed his company. "Mr. Wellington?" Lucy appeared in the hospital hallway, wearing the same meticulously clean but obviously second-hand clothes from the previous evening. Her face showed a mixture of surprise and cautious hope. "You actually came. I wasn't completely sure you would." "I always keep my promises, Lucy, especially important ones." Marcus smiled warmly, genuinely happy to see her again. "Is your grandmother awake and feeling well enough for visitors? I would very much like to meet the woman who taught you such incredible skills." Lucy led him down the sterile hospital corridor to room 314, where a frail but remarkably dignified elderly woman lay propped up against pillows, connected to various medical monitoring devices. Despite her obvious illness, Margaret Chen's eyes were sharp, intelligent, and immediately alert, and Marcus could instantly see where Lucy had inherited her exceptional quick mind and analytical abilities. "Grandma, this is Mr. Wellington, the businessman I told you about last night," Lucy said gently, taking her grandmother's weathered hand with obvious affection. "So you're the successful businessman my granddaughter managed to impress so thoroughly," Margaret said, her voice weak from illness but warm with unmistakable pride. "Lucy has always been extraordinarily gifted with computers and technology. I taught her everything I could remember from my old IBM days, but she surpassed my knowledge years ago." Marcus sat down carefully in the bedside chair. "Mrs. Chen, Lucy didn't just impress me last night. She literally saved my entire company from bankruptcy. Those technical skills you taught her, they're absolutely extraordinary. She has abilities that most professional adults never develop." He paused, choosing his words with deliberate care. "I have a proposition that I sincerely hope both of you will consider carefully. I want to offer Lucy a future that truly matches her incredible abilities." Margaret's eyes narrowed slightly, protective grandmother instincts immediately activated. "What specific kind of future are you proposing, Mr. Wellington?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Knowing this moment would change everything. I want to adopt Lucy as my daughter. I want to give her the education, opportunities, and family she deserves. And I want to ensure you receive the best medical care available, with all expenses covered completely." The room fell into a profound silence as both Lucy and her grandmother processed this life-changing proposal. Margaret studied Marcus's face intently, searching for any sign of deception or false promises. "Mr. Wellington," Margaret said slowly, "Lucy is all I have left in this world. Her mother was my only child, and when she died, Lucy became my entire reason for living. I won't let anyone take advantage of her extraordinary gifts." "I understand completely," Marcus replied. "I'm not asking you to trust me immediately. I'm asking for the chance to prove that I can give Lucy the future she deserves while ensuring you're always part of her life. Last night, she saved my company, but more importantly, she reminded me what really matters in life." Lucy looked between the two most important adults in her life, her young mind processing the magnitude of what was being offered. "Grandma, Maybe this is the answer to our prayers. You always said that everything happens for a reason. Margaret squeezed Lucy's hand gently. Child, this is the biggest decision we'll ever make. Are you sure this is what you want? Lucy nodded solemnly. I want to help people with technology, Grandma. Mr. Wellington can teach me things you can't, and he can make sure you get the medicine you need. Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes as he witnessed this moment of trust and hope between grandmother and granddaughter. 3 days later, Marcus found himself sitting in the elegant conference room of his attorney's office, surrounded by legal documents that would formalize the most important decision of his life. The adoption papers lay spread across the mahogany table, each page representing a new chapter in what had become an extraordinary journey of redemption and hope. Lucy sat beside him, wearing a brand new navy blue dress that Marcus had bought for this special occasion. Her small hands were folded carefully in her lap, and despite her young age, she seemed to understand the gravity and significance of what was happening. Margaret, who had been released from the hospital just the day before with a clean bill of health thanks to the world-class medical treatment Marcus had arranged, sat on Lucy's other side, her eyes bright with tears of joy and gratitude. Mr. Wellington, said James Morrison, Marcus's longtime attorney and friend, I have to say, in 30 years of practicing family law, I've rarely seen a case quite like this one. The background checks came back absolutely spotless. The financial assessments are more than adequate, and the character references are outstanding. However, I do want to make sure you fully understand the magnitude of what you're committing to here. Marcus nodded solemnly, his gaze moving between the legal documents and Lucy's expectant face. James, I understand completely. This isn't a decision I've made lightly or impulsively. Lucy has already changed my life in ways I never thought possible, and I want to give her every opportunity to reach her incredible potential. The past 3 days had been a whirlwind of activity and emotion. True to his word, Marcus had immediately arranged for the best medical specialists in New York to treat Margaret's pneumonia. The combination of advanced antibiotics, respiratory therapy, and proper nutrition had worked miracles. The elderly woman who had been fighting for her life just days ago was now sitting upright, alert, and planning for a future she had feared might never come. Meanwhile, Lucy had spent those 3 days at Marcus's penthouse apartment, marveling at luxuries she had never imagined, while simultaneously helping his IT team complete the full recovery of the corrupted files. Her insights had been invaluable in identifying the source of the sabotage, a disgruntled former employee who had tried to steal proprietary code before deleting the evidence. The man was now in police custody, and Wellington Tech Solutions was not only saved, but stronger than ever. Lucy, James addressed her directly, do you understand what adoption means? Mr. Wellington would become your legal father, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Lucy looked up at Marcus with those remarkable blue eyes that had first captivated him in the restaurant. It means I'll have a family again, she said simply. And it means I can learn everything I need to help other people with technology. Margaret reached over and squeezed her granddaughter's hand. Mr. Wellington, I want you to know that giving my consent to this adoption is both the hardest and easiest decision I've ever made. Hard because Lucy is my whole world, but easy because I can see the love and respect you already have for her. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. Mrs. Chen, you'll always be Lucy's grandmother, and you'll always have a place in our family. That's not just a promise, that's a guarantee. James shuffled through the papers one final time. Well then, if everyone is ready, let's make this official. He placed the final adoption decree in front of Marcus. Mr. Wellington, with your signature, Lucy Chen will become Lucy Wellington, your legal daughter. As Marcus picked up the pen, his hand trembled slightly. He thought about the lonely, desperate man he had been just 1 week ago, convinced that his life was over. Now, he was about to become a father to the most remarkable child he had ever met. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the back of the auditorium at the prestigious Manhattan Institute of Technology, watching with pride as Lucy delivered a presentation to a room full of stunned computer science professors and graduate students. At just 10 years old, she was explaining advanced cybersecurity concepts with the confidence and expertise of someone with decades of experience. As you can see from this code analysis, Lucy's clear voice carried across the auditorium as she pointed to the complex programming displayed on the massive screen behind her. The vulnerability exists not in the encryption algorithm itself, but in the way most developers implement the authentication protocols. By creating a small buffer overflow here, she highlighted a section of code, we can demonstrate how seemingly secure systems can be compromised. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Marcus could see the amazement and disbelief on their faces as this small girl casually explained concepts that many of them had struggled to understand during their doctoral studies. Dr. Sarah Williams, the head of the computer science department, sat in the front row with her mouth slightly open in wonder. Lucy had been attending classes at MIT for the past 3 months, after exhaustive testing had revealed that her intellectual capacity was far beyond anything the traditional school system could offer. The transition hadn't been without challenges. Many students and even some faculty members had initially been skeptical about a 10-year-old joining their ranks. But Lucy's quiet confidence and extraordinary abilities had quickly won over even the harshest critics. Now, the interesting part, Lucy continued, is that we can actually use this same vulnerability to create stronger security systems. By understanding how these exploits work, we can build defenses that are virtually unbreakable. She clicked to the next slide, revealing an elegant piece of code that made several professors lean forward in their seats. Marcus thought back to the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. The adoption had been finalized without any complications, and Lucy had moved into his penthouse with an enthusiasm that had transformed the sterile, lonely space into a real home. She had her own room, of course, but she had also convinced Marcus to convert his rarely used library into a state-of-the-art computer lab where she could pursue her passion for technology. Margaret had moved into a beautiful assisted living facility just 10 blocks away, where she received the best care available while maintaining her independence. She visited every weekend, often bringing home-cooked meals and stories from her own days working with early computers. The three of them had formed an unlikely but incredibly strong family unit. Wellington Tech Solutions had not only recovered from its crisis, but had become more successful than ever, with Lucy's insights helping to guide their cybersecurity division. They had landed several major government contracts and had been featured on the cover of Technology Today magazine. Marcus found himself working fewer hours than he had in years, preferring to spend time with his brilliant daughter and watching her discover the world. In conclusion, Lucy said, wrapping up her presentation, security isn't about building higher walls. It's about understanding your weaknesses and turning them into strengths. Thank you for your attention, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. The auditorium erupted in applause. Dr. Williams stood up first, followed quickly by the rest of the audience. Marcus felt tears of pride welling up in his eyes as he watched his daughter take a modest bow. Remarkable, said Professor James Chen, no relation to Lucy, who had approached Marcus during the presentation. Absolutely remarkable. I've been teaching cybersecurity for 15 years, and I learned 3 new concepts today from a 10-year-old. You must be incredibly proud. More proud than I ever thought possible, Marcus replied, still applauding as Lucy gathered her notes from the podium. As the crowd began to disperse, Lucy bounded over to Marcus with a bright smile on her face. "How did I do, Dad?" The word "Dad" still sent a warm surge through Marcus's heart every time he heard it. "You were absolutely brilliant, sweetheart. I think you may have just revolutionized how they teach cybersecurity here." "Dr. Williams wants to talk to us about something special," Lucy said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "She said it's about a project that could help a lot of people." Dr. Williams led them to her private office, which was filled with awards, academic papers, and cutting-edge computer equipment. She gestured for them to sit in the comfortable chairs across from her desk, then turned to face them with an expression of barely contained excitement. "Mr. Wellington, Lucy, what I'm about to share with you is highly confidential and could potentially change the landscape of cybersecurity forever," she began, her voice serious but enthusiastic. "For the past 2 years, we've been working on a project in partnership with the Department of Homeland Security. We're developing a new type of security system that could protect critical infrastructure from cyber attacks." Lucy leaned forward, immediately interested. "What kind of infrastructure?" "Everything. Power grids, water treatment facilities, hospitals, airports, financial institutions. The backbone of modern society is increasingly vulnerable to sophisticated cyber attacks, and traditional security measures are proving inadequate against the new generation of threats." Marcus felt a chill as he considered the implications. How can Lucy help with something that important? "That's just it," Dr. Williams said, turning to look directly at Lucy. "Your daughter's presentation today demonstrated exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. She doesn't just understand how systems work, she understands how they fail, and more importantly, how they can be made stronger." She pulled out a thick folder marked with security classifications. "Lucy, have you ever heard of something called a zero-day exploit?" "Of course," Lucy replied immediately. "It's a security vulnerability that hasn't been discovered or patched yet. Hackers can use them to attack systems before anyone knows they're vulnerable." "Exactly. Now, what if I told you that we've discovered a way to predict where these vulnerabilities might occur before they're even exploited?" Lucy's eyes widened with understanding. "You're talking about predictive cybersecurity, using pattern analysis to identify weaknesses before they become problems." "That's precisely what we're talking about. But the challenge is that the patterns are incredibly complex. We need someone who can think outside traditional parameters, someone who can see connections that others miss." Marcus began to understand where this conversation was heading. "You want Lucy to join your team?" I want to offer her the opportunity to work on the most important cybersecurity project in the country," Dr. Williams clarified. "She would be working alongside the brightest minds in the field, with access to resources and technology that most researchers can only dream of." Lucy looked at Marcus, her expression serious beyond her years. "Dad, this could help protect millions of people. I understand that, sweetheart, but you're still just 10 years old. Are you sure you're ready for that kind of responsibility?" Dr. Williams interjected gently. "Mr. Wellington, I understand your concerns, and they're completely valid. We wouldn't be asking Lucy to work full-time or to handle anything beyond her capabilities. This would be a gradual integration with plenty of support and supervision." "What exactly would be expected of her?" Marcus asked. "Initially, we'd like her to review some of our existing code and provide her insights. If she's comfortable and successful with that, we might ask her to help design some new security protocols. Everything would be done here at MIT with full academic credit and always with your approval." Lucy tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Dad, remember what you told me about using my gifts to help people. This is exactly what you meant, isn't it?" Marcus looked into his daughter's earnest face and saw not just remarkable intelligence, but genuine compassion and a desire to make the world better. "Are you absolutely sure this is what you want to do?" "I'm sure," Lucy said firmly. "But only if you think it's okay." Marcus turned back to Dr. Williams. "What kind of security clearance would this require?" "We've already begun the preliminary paperwork for Lucy to receive a limited security clearance appropriate for her age and status. The process is unusual, but given her unique abilities and the potential value of her contributions, the Department of Homeland Security has expedited the approval." "And what about her regular education?" "She would continue her accelerated coursework here at MIT, but with additional specialized training in advanced cybersecurity. We're essentially talking about creating a customized program that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world." Marcus felt the weight of the decision. This opportunity could launch Lucy into a career that would allow her to help protect millions of people, but it would also thrust her into a world of enormous responsibility at an incredibly young age. "I need some time to think about this," he said finally. "Of course," Dr. Williams replied. "Take all the time you need. But I will say this. In my 30 years in academia, I've never seen anyone with Lucy's combination of technical skill and intuitive understanding. She has the potential to revolutionize how we think about cybersecurity." 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in the secure basement laboratory of MIT's Cybersecurity Research Center, watching Lucy work alongside a team of the country's top security experts. She had accepted the position after extensive discussions between Marcus, Margaret, and several child psychologists who specialized in gifted children. "Lucy, can you take a look at this code sequence?" called Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a former NSA analyst who had initially been skeptical about working with a 10-year-old. "We're seeing some anomalies that we can't explain." Lucy rolled her chair over to his workstation, her eyes scanning the lines of complex code displayed on multiple monitors. "Oh, I see the problem," she said, after just a few seconds. "This isn't an anomaly, it's a deliberate backdoor. Someone embedded it to look like a normal function, but see how this variable is being called in an unusual pattern." Dr. Rodriguez stared at the screen, then at Lucy, then back at the screen. "My God, you're right. How did you spot that so quickly?" "It's like reading a story where one sentence doesn't fit with the others," Lucy explained simply. "The logic flow is wrong for what the code is supposed to be doing." Marcus watched this interaction with a mixture of pride and amazement. In just 2 weeks, Lucy had already made 3 significant discoveries that had helped strengthen the security system they were developing. More importantly, she seemed to genuinely enjoy the work and had formed strong relationships with her adult colleagues. "Mr. Wellington," said Director Janet Thompson, the head of the entire project, approaching him with a serious expression, "could I speak with you privately for a moment?" They stepped into a small conference room adjacent to the main laboratory. Director Thompson closed the door and turned to face Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read. "I have to be honest with you," she began. "When Dr. Williams first proposed bringing Lucy onto this team, I thought it was a publicity stunt or some kind of academic experiment. I've been working in cybersecurity for 25 years, and I've never seen anything like what your daughter can do." Marcus felt a surge of parental pride, but also a growing sense of concern. "What exactly are you saying?" "I'm saying that Lucy's abilities are so far beyond what we typically see that we need to discuss some additional security measures and protocols." "What kind of security measures?" Director Thompson sat down across from Marcus, her expression becoming more serious. "The project Lucy is working on is classified at the highest levels. The security systems she's helping to develop will protect critical infrastructure across the entire country. That makes her, unfortunately, a potential target." Marcus felt his blood run cold. "A target for whom?" Foreign intelligence services, terrorist organizations, criminal hackers, anyone who would benefit from compromising American cybersecurity. Lucy's insights are so valuable that there are people who would do anything to either recruit her or prevent her from helping us. Are you saying she's in danger? I'm saying we need to be extremely careful. We've already implemented additional security measures here at the lab, and we'd like to discuss some precautions for her daily life as well. Marcus stood up abruptly, his protective instincts kicking in. If there's any risk to Lucy's safety, I'll pull her out of this project immediately. Mr. Wellington, please sit down. I understand your concerns, and they're completely justified. But the truth is, Lucy's safety might actually be better protected if she continues working with us. We have resources and capabilities that civilian security simply can't match. Explain that to me. If Lucy were to suddenly disappear from this project, it would only confirm to potential threats that her abilities are as remarkable as they suspect. By keeping her involved but with enhanced protection, we can better monitor and control any potential risks. Marcus sank back into his chair, feeling overwhelmed by the complexity of the situation. What kind of protection are we talking about? Discreet security details, enhanced monitoring of her communications and movements, regular threat assessments. Most of it would be invisible to Lucy. We don't want to disrupt her normal life or make her feel like she's living in fear. And if I say no, then we respect your decision completely. But I have to tell you, Mr. Wellington, what Lucy is doing here could prevent cyber attacks that might kill thousands of people. The security systems she's helping to design could protect hospitals from ransomware attacks, prevent hackers from shutting down power grids, and keep financial systems secure. Her contributions could literally save lives. Marcus thought about the innocent, brilliant girl working just a few rooms away, completely absorbed in code that could change the world. I need to discuss this with Lucy. Of course. But there's one more thing you should know. What's that? Yesterday, Lucy identified a vulnerability in a major bank's security system that could have been exploited to steal billions of dollars. We notified the bank, and they've already implemented her suggested fix. She prevented a massive financial disaster, and she doesn't even know it yet. That evening, Marcus sat with Lucy in their living room, trying to find the right words to explain the conversation he'd had with Director Thompson. Lucy was curled up in her favorite chair, reading an advanced computer science textbook that most graduate students would find challenging. "Lucy, sweetheart, we need to talk about your work at the lab." She looked up from her book, immediately sensing the seriousness in his tone. "Is something wrong? Did I make a mistake?" "No, not at all. You've been doing incredible work." "That's actually what we need to discuss." Marcus explained the security concerns as gently as possible, watching Lucy's face carefully for signs of fear or anxiety. To his surprise, she listened calmly and thoughtfully, asking intelligent questions about the nature of the threats and the proposed protection measures. "So, basically," she said when he finished, "there are bad people who might want to hurt me because I'm good with computers." That's a simplified way to put it. But yes. Lucy was quiet for a long moment, clearly processing this information. "Dad, how many people could be hurt if the bad guys succeed in their cyber attacks?" "Potentially thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. And my work is really helping to stop that?" "According to Director Thompson, yes. Your insights have already prevented several major attacks." Lucy closed her book and looked directly at Marcus. "Then I want to keep working, but I want to understand exactly what the security measures will be." Over the next hour, they went through every detail of the proposed protection plan. Lucy asked practical questions about how the security would affect her daily routine, her ability to visit Margaret, and her continued education. Marcus was struck once again by her maturity and her ability to think through complex situations logically. "There's one more thing," Marcus said finally. "Director Thompson mentioned that you identified a vulnerability that could have led to a massive bank robbery. Did you know how important that discovery was?" Lucy shook her head. "I just noticed that their authentication system had a flaw. It seemed like something they should fix." "Lucy, that something they should fix prevented billions of dollars from being stolen. You literally saved an entire bank." Her eyes widened. "Really? Really? And that's just one example of how your work is making a difference." Lucy was quiet again, and Marcus could see her weighing the implications of everything they had discussed. Finally, she spoke. "Dad, I want to keep helping, but I have some conditions." "What kind of conditions?" "First, I want Margaret to be protected too. If someone might try to hurt me, they might try to hurt her to get to me." Marcus nodded. "That's already been arranged. Second, I want to know if there are ever any real threats. I don't want to be kept in the dark about dangers that affect me. That's reasonable. What else? And third, I want to have a normal life outside of the lab. I still want to be a kid sometimes." Marcus felt his heart swell with love and pride, even facing potential danger. Lucy was thinking about others and trying to maintain balance in her life. Those all sound like very reasonable conditions to me. "Then I want to keep working on the project." "Are you absolutely sure?" "Dad, you taught me that having special abilities means having special responsibilities. If I can help protect people, then I should do that. But I also trust you to keep me safe." Marcus pulled Lucy into a tight hug, marveling at the wisdom and courage of his remarkable daughter. "I promise you, sweetheart, I will do everything in my power to keep you safe while you're helping to keep the world safe." As they sat together in the warm glow of their living room, Marcus reflected on how dramatically his life had changed in just 7 months. He had gone from a lonely, failed businessman to the father of the most extraordinary child he could have imagined. The challenges ahead would be significant, but he knew that together they could handle anything. 1 year later, Marcus stood on the stage of the White House East Room, watching with overwhelming pride as President Patricia Morrison presented Lucy with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the youngest person in American history ever to receive the nation's highest civilian honor. "Ladies and gentlemen," the president said, addressing the gathered crowd of dignitaries, scientists, and media representatives, "it gives me great pleasure to present this award to Lucy Wellington, whose extraordinary contributions to cybersecurity have prevented countless attacks on our nation's critical infrastructure and saved countless American lives." Lucy, now 11 years old and wearing an elegant navy blue dress, stepped forward with the poise and confidence that had become her trademark. As the president placed the medal around her neck, Marcus thought back to the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. The cybersecurity project had been a complete success. The system that Lucy had helped design was now protecting power grids, hospitals, financial institutions, and government facilities across the country. In the past year alone, it had prevented 17 major cyber attacks, including attempts to shut down the power grid in 3 major cities and a sophisticated attack on the Federal Reserve. But Lucy's contributions had gone far beyond just technical expertise. She had developed new training programs for cybersecurity professionals, created educational materials to help children understand online safety, and established a foundation to provide computer education to underprivileged kids. Her work had inspired a new generation of young people to pursue careers in technology and cybersecurity. "This medal," the president continued, "represents not just recognition of past achievements, but our confidence in Lucy's continued contributions to our national security and the safety of all Americans." Ubi. As the ceremony concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Marcus was approached by Margaret, who had been seated in the front row with tears of joy streaming down her face. "I never dreamed," she said, embracing Marcus warmly, "when I taught that little girl her first computer lessons, that she would end up here." "Dickie, she's exceeded everyone's dreams," Marcus replied, watching Lucy graciously accept congratulations from various officials and dignitaries. Dr. Williams approached them, beaming with pride. "Marcus, I have some news that I think you'll find interesting. MIT has decided to award Lucy an honorary doctorate in computer science. She'll be the youngest person ever to receive a doctoral degree from the university. How does she feel about that?" "I haven't told her yet. I wanted to check with you first." Marcus laughed. "At this point, I've learned to just trust Lucy's judgment. If she wants to accept it, she has my full support." As the evening wound down, Marcus and Lucy found themselves alone in the rose garden, enjoying a quiet moment together after the whirlwind of the ceremony. "How does it feel to be the youngest presidential medal recipient in history?" Marcus asked. Lucy fingered the medal thoughtfully. "It feels good to know that the work is making a difference, but honestly, Dad, the best part is having you and Margaret there to share it with me. You know I'm proud of you, right? Not just for what you've accomplished, but for who you've become." "I know. And I know that none of this would have happened if you hadn't taken a chance on a hungry kid in a restaurant." Marcus smiled, remembering that fateful night that had changed both their lives forever. "I think it's more accurate to say that you took a chance on a lonely, desperate businessman who had lost his way." "We saved each other," Lucy said simply. As they walked back toward the White House, Marcus reflected on the extraordinary path that had brought them here. From a chance encounter in a restaurant to the halls of power in Washington, their story had been one of hope, determination, and the incredible things that could happen when two people chose to believe in each other. Lucy had not only saved his company and given his life meaning, but she had become a force for good in the world, using her remarkable gifts to protect and serve others. And Marcus had discovered that being a father was the most important and rewarding role he had ever played. "What's next for us?" Lucy asked as they reached the White House steps. "Whatever you want it to be, sweetheart. The world is full of problems that need solving. And I have complete confidence that you'll find ways to help solve them. As long as we're doing it together," Lucy said, taking his hand. "Always together," Marcus promised, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. As they walked into the future, father and daughter, Marcus knew that their greatest adventures were still ahead of them. The little girl who had unlocked his phone had unlocked his heart, and together they would continue to unlock the potential for a better, safer world for everyone. This remarkable story of Marcus Wellington and Lucy Chen serves as a profound reminder that life's most transformative moments often arrive disguised as ordinary encounters. In a world increasingly divided by social barriers and economic disparities, their meeting represents the extraordinary power of human connection to transcend circumstances and create miraculous change. The beauty of divine timing. Marcus's lowest moment became the catalyst for his greatest triumph. When we examine his journey, we see a man who had achieved everything society tells us to pursue: wealth, success, recognition, yet found himself spiritually bankrupt and emotionally isolated. His company's crisis, devastating as it seemed, created the exact circumstances necessary for him to encounter Lucy. Had he been riding high on success that evening, would he have even noticed a hungry child asking for food? Sometimes our darkest hours position us to receive our greatest blessings. Recognizing hidden treasures, Lucy's story illustrates how brilliance can exist in the most unexpected packages. Society often overlooks the potential in those who don't fit conventional molds. The homeless, the poor, The overlooked. Yet here was a 9-year-old girl carrying solutions to problems that had stumped teams of experts. This teaches us to look beyond appearances and circumstances, to recognize the inherent worth and potential in every person we encounter. The ripple effect of compassion. What began as a simple act of kindness, offering a challenge to a hungry child, created ripples that eventually protected millions of Americans from cyber attacks. This demonstrates how our smallest gestures can have consequences far beyond our imagination. Marcus's willingness to engage with Lucy didn't just save his company. It ultimately strengthened national security and inspired a new generation of cybersecurity professionals. Redefining success and family. Both Marcus and Lucy discovered that true success isn't measured in financial terms, but in the depth of our relationships and the positive impact we have on others. Marcus learned that being a father was more fulfilling than being a CEO, while Lucy found that her greatest achievement wasn't her intelligence, but her ability to protect others. Their unconventional family, including Margaret, proves that love creates stronger bonds than blood. The courage to embrace change. Each character in this story demonstrated remarkable courage to step outside their comfort zones. Marcus risked everything by trusting a child with his most valuable possession. Lucy chose to accept enormous responsibility at a young age. Margaret courageously entrusted her beloved granddaughter to a stranger. Their willingness to embrace uncertainty and change led to outcomes none of them could have imagined. Second chances and redemption. This story powerfully illustrates that it's never too late for a second chance. Marcus, at 42, felt his life was over when his company failed. Yet this apparent ending became a new beginning that led to his most meaningful chapter. Similarly, Lucy and Margaret faced poverty and illness, but found hope through unexpected kindness. Their story reminds us that redemption can arrive at any moment, often through the most unlikely circumstances. The responsibility of gifts. Lucy's journey from homeless child to presidential medal recipient demonstrates that exceptional abilities come with exceptional responsibilities. Her story shows young people that their talents, no matter how extraordinary, should be used in service of others. Her foundation work and educational initiatives prove that true fulfillment comes from lifting others up, not just achieving personal success. Building bridges across differences. In an era of increasing social division, Marcus and Lucy's relationship transcends every barrier: age, race, economic status, educational background. Their bond was forged through mutual respect, shared values, and genuine care for each other's well-being. This reminds us that meaningful connections are possible when we focus on our shared humanity rather than our differences. The power of believing in others. Perhaps the most powerful theme in this story is the transformative effect of believing in someone's potential. Marcus saw Lucy's worth immediately and invested in her future. This belief gave Lucy the confidence and resources to reach heights she never could have imagined. When we believe in others and invest in their potential, we don't just change their lives, we change the world. A legacy of hope. Ultimately, this story is about hope. The hope that our circumstances don't define our destiny, that chance encounters can change everything, and that love really can conquer all obstacles. Marcus and Lucy's journey from that restaurant meeting to the White House ceremony proves that with courage, compassion, and determination, ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things and create lasting positive change in the world.